To the next session, Business Leaders Forum Tech for Good, and this will be moderated by Mr. Chiranjeev Bhattacharya. He is the co-chairperson of IT Committee, the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and CEO of Wiseacting Informatics Private Limited. I would request Mr. Bhattacharya to please take the session forward. And before that, I would like to thank all the speakers of our opening session to carve out time from their very busy schedules and join us. Thank you, our audience who are in the webcast and also in all the platforms of the social media here in India, and also the members of the Indian International American Chamber of Commerce to have joined us today. Once again, thanking our sponsors, our diamond sponsor, ND Softwares, gold sponsor, PwC, silver sponsors, Infinity, NextGen, and JIS, who's also our chief patron, the bronze sponsor, CESC, Dr. Reddy's Lab, EasyRex, and Mazars, and special thanks once again to Government of West Bengal, IT&E Department, and Webel. So with this, I request Mr. Bhattacharya to please take the session forward.
Thank you so much, Angana. A very good evening to all of you. It gives us immense pleasure to welcome you all to this Business Leaders Forum, Tech for Good. On behalf of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we would like to sincerely thank all of you for being with us in spite of the current challenging times. We are delighted to have business leaders of global repute amongst us in this panel discussion today. Well, understanding the relation between humans and technology is key to responsible development and acceptance of future technologies in almost every application field, be it energy, mobility, health, work, living, learning, or entertainment. Future technologies need to be based on human needs and values at a personal, organizational, and societal level. They will have to adapt their functionality to maximize these needs and values, and in some application fields, we'll have to engage humans at these different levels. In fact, this is one of the conditions for their successful adoption and diffusion. We need to understand better how past technologies have fundamentally changed human existence and how future technologies may impact human beings and their society. This reflection will help to design technologies with maximal value and minimal friction in a responsible way. To quote from an article from McKinsey Digital, firstly, we are on the edge of the next wave of computing power. At one breakfast meeting, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella predicted that 500 million apps will be developed in the next 5 years because tech is becoming so much easier to use. That allows citizen developers, as he referred to them, to create many more applications. Secondly, corporations are becoming educators and making a commitment to lifelong learning. Companies are aware of the need for tech leadership around social responsibility. AI is getting real. And key to this shift is a deeper understanding that when companies implement AI, they need to pay particular attention to changing processes and how people work with the technology. Any change in tech requires a change in the operating model. Yuval Noah Harari, the author of Sapiens, has argued that AI technologies could eventually splinter humanity into two classes. He labels the gods and the useless. Those who can avail themselves of performance augmenting AI and those who cannot. Lastly, technology has a growing role in addressing climate change. With this, I would now request our honorable panelists to share their valuable insights with us today. Our panelists are Mr. Kinesh Doshi, founding CEO of Axion Labs, USA. Mr. Nicholas Perel, partner, head technology and digital solution, Mazars Group. Mr. Sudhir Kothari, founder, CEO and director, MB Software Private Limited. Mr. Sujit Bakshi, president, corporate affairs and business head, emerging markets, Tech Mahindra. and Mr. Ranjit Mitrani, Head of Sales and Solutions, NextGen Infinite Data Center. We start with Mr. Kinesh Doshi, founding CEO, Axion Labs, USA. Good evening, Mr. Doshi.
Good evening to you.
How are you, sir?
Excellent, excellent. Very excited about this session, and thank you. I've been listening to great speakers here, and what an amazing opportunity to speak to people at Bengal Chamber from sitting here in Orlando, Florida.
Sincerely appreciate your participation and your enthusiasm. Delighted to have you with us. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Mr. Doshi, you have been the founding CEO of such an innovation-focused technology services firm at Pittsburgh. In fact, we understand that this was the fastest growing company out of Pittsburgh for 5 years in a row, and has offices across US, Canada, UK, Singapore, India, Middle East, and Malaysia. And you have also been the EY Best Entrepreneur Award winner, and also the president of Young Presidents Organization, Orlando chapter. With this kind of an exemplary experience, kindly allow me, Mr. Doshi, to ask a few questions. We would learn from your huge experience. Firstly, how would you like to define innovation? You have been involved in a lot of disruptive technologies since 2011. And over the years, what in your opinion has had the largest impact on humans?
Thank you. Before I get into the responses to these questions, I want to thank KV Kumar, who spoke just a little bit ago as the Indian American Chamber of Commerce president, who has been very inspirational, and he really connected me to you guys for this session. So that I really wanted to make sure I'm thanking him. He invited me to join the executive committee of the chamber most recently. So really excited about that, and the efforts his organization is doing to improve the Indian American relationships. So I want to maybe back up a little bit and give you a little bit background of where I come from. So I grew up in Delhi. When you're growing up in 1990s in Delhi, doing your college and so on, technology becomes really part of you as an engineer. When I did my first job, I was working in my first job. I was a programmer, and I used to do a lot of software development to automate business workflows and reduce paper. So when people would ask me, what do you do, Mr. Doshi, or what do you do, Kinesh? I would respond by saying, I save trees, right? So really, if you really think about it, technology has come a long way from the times when we were automating workflows, reducing paper usage, to today, where it is really part of our everyday life. And, I feel like I had the front row seat in this journey as I became an entrepreneur and grew this company, Axion Labs, to a global organization. So now going back to your part of the question, how we define innovation today. In my mind, innovation is anything that improves human life. Actually, not even human life, life in general. And that includes animal life, and that includes plant life. Anything that improves human life. And we do almost 100 plus projects each year in the innovation space. We position ourselves as an innovation engineering organization. So we get a lot of work. I would also like to draw a distinction between invention and innovation. A lot of times we tend to confuse. One of the most obvious thing is that invention is when you're innovating, when you're really doing something new. But innovation could be when you're improving something, right? And the second part is when you apply invention, it becomes innovation. And I wouldn't say commercialized, because not every invention needs to be commercialized, right? It could be for greater good, and we'll talk more about that in this session. As far as Axion is concerned, for us, innovation really gives purpose to our employees. And I'm a passionate believer that employees don't work for you just for salary and work, but they work when you have a purpose. And I think our employees see that we have probably one of the highest retention of employees in this in our space. Secondly, innovation also has a life cycle. So we are a big believer. You can't discover a new idea. You have to go through a life cycle, a formal process. So those are my thoughts, that anything that improves, and we also believe that some of the best opportunity of innovation lies in the most boring areas. So a lot of people say AI, ML, virtual reality, augmented reality, and we all get excited about these new technologies, but improvement and innovation happens in some of the areas that are you don't even think about it: collaboration, communication, software life cycle. At least in our space, and I know that's not the theme of this conclave, but there's a lot of opportunity exists of innovation in areas. So at Axion, we call innovation everywhere. That means every aspect of our life can be innovated upon. So that's one part. I think you asked the second part of a question was what you consider as the I guess the most impactful innovation of our times. And I look back, I personally believe mobility. And I know today we are all mobile and we use technology every day. But if you think about it, mobility and mission awareness, when your technology knows where you are, that changes the way the technology can assist you. And no one saw pandemic coming, right? But it happened. And today, 43% of world's workforce is able to work remotely. I think 87% of technology workers are able to work remotely. That's a colossal number of people that we are able to retain employed because of the mobility and remote collaboration inventions and innovations that we have done over the years. As I look forward, I don't know how much of research some of the viewers have been doing recently, but there is the concept called distributed applications. And distributed applications are the next frontier of innovation we are going to see, which allows people that are disconnected from the universe, from the Facebook, from the WhatsApp of the universe, and they are able to use that technology in a disconnected manner. It's a technology built around blockchain and other technologies. So I would say that would have the greatest impact.
Thank you so much, Mr. Doshi. While we talk of consumerization of technology, a lot of enterprises still grapple with ERP adoption. Even analytics implementation is quite behind expectations and times. There is a big divide between perception of innovative tech and actual adoption. What are the challenges you face in the adoption of innovative tech, and what do you foresee as the future of technology adoption?
Sure. So I think you are absolutely right, Chiranjeev, that there is this big rift between the haves and have-nots as far as the technology is concerned. And I think the challenges have been around. I see a ray of hope and a ray of light at the end of this tunnel. I see tremendous progress being made in that area. A few things that I feel that's going to occur. And again, particularly with regards to small to medium businesses and their adoption of technology versus enterprises that are usually further ahead on the technology curve. What I see is, first of all, there is going to be, unfortunately, self-selection. Those who cannot adopt newer technologies are going to go away. So I know that's not how we want it to happen, but I think self-selection is going to be very real, and it's going to happen. Now, the challenges that we face, and more importantly, I think that the challenges have been addressed through recent innovation and inventions in the technology. I think the first important thing is software as service. We believe that the SaaS is enabling smaller organizations to access innovation that our larger companies have been doing. So to your point about ERPs and their adoption and then analytics, today you don't need to have very large infrastructure to do analytics. You don't have to buy 5-year licenses for ERP. So being able to have a subscription-based, SaaS-based software acquisition model, I think that has been a huge enabler in the most recent years. We also believe that there'll be a restructuring of supply chain, which is already occurring. If you think about it from an infrastructure and cloud perspective, I think now you can access these services remotely and online, again, on a subscription basis. But I also believe advising, and we at Axion offer a program which is what we call as innovation as a service. So what that means is you don't have to have that high-end IT departments to actually build innovation for you. You could actually take expert advice from other companies at a fraction of a cost of having your own IT organization. So I think some of these innovations in SaaS and ability to really look at a newer supply chains of innovation and innovative advisory services, I think that's good. That's going to help. Also, decentralized apps, as I mentioned to you about earlier, I think that is going to change the world, because that's going to remove the need to keep it. In some ways, it's going to disintermediate some of the larger organizations. And then I think it really will enable you to have the innovation. Finally, I would say open source. I understand open source is something every organization uses to some extent, but that is even further fueled with newer technologies coming. We ourselves are engaged in about 10 to 11 open source projects. And I think accessing open source technology really would help some of the organizations as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Doshi. There has been huge contribution from your organization in the domain of digital transformation. Will you kindly tell us more about the various innovations created by you? And specifically, how did you integrate innovative technologies to create a mind stimulation platform? And what has been the impact of this kind of a platform on the users? We are very keen to know.
Yeah, Chiranjeev, thank you. So that's an excellent question. So so Axion has about, like I said, 100 plus active projects going on at any point in time. We have closer to 2,700 plus employees globally distributed. And so we do a lot of work, and we specialize in working with tech companies. So there's a lot of interesting work we are doing. What I thought is, maybe if it's okay with you, may I share some content here so that makes it a little more visual?
Please.
Are you able to see my content?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so let me just show you some of the interesting innovation Axion does. So we start with a concept called levers of innovation. So we have a big belief that there's an inversion of innovation supply chain has occurred. So remember the days when innovation used to come from the business. Today, innovation comes from the technologists. So think about it. The best transportation app was not built by a transportation person. The best healthcare products are not built by people with healthcare background. So what we are seeing is that innovators are innovating and business people are using those innovations. So this is what I call as inversion of innovation. And there are many different levers that you can press to create an innovative solution. And I don't believe there is a solution called a cloud solution or a mobile solution. When you combine these levers of innovation, you create something amazing. And that's what we call as an innovative product. So to your point about, let me show you the first product And I'm just going to quickly jump through some of the innovations just to give you a visual of what type of work we do. So this is a product company out of the Bay Area, and we collaborated with them to create mind stimulation platform. And what it does is it has a hardware, it has, of course, a software and a web platform, which software runs from the mobile app, and you actually activate this hardware device that is sitting on your forehead and kind of sends electrical signals to your brain. Initially, the product was designed to create peace and happiness vibes, and it was pretty amazing. I was the guinea pig for the product in the early years, and pretty exciting to be part of that journey. And then today, the same technology is being used to actually cure autoimmune diseases because it can activate certain signals in your brain. So this is just an example of the work, and this is all done by Axion, distributed between different, our US office, our India office. They all collaborated in building the firmware, the software, the mobile platform, everything. So that's just an example of this is an interesting another product that you built where this is for a very large health system out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And what the product does is historically, doctors and nurses would analyze thousands and thousands of x-rays to determine what should be done to a specific orthopedic patient, particularly around the knee problems. Now we're using AI ML to actually create pathways automatically. And this has reduced the work by 80% for doctors and nurses. So as an example where AI ML is being used to direct a case in a certain direction, and then humans are not, and people have to really come every month for x-rays and then go back, and then so it's really a lot of automation has been brought in, and the concept is being applied to other specialties within the same hospital system. Here's a utility company that is water is a scarce resource, we all know, and in US water companies are municipalities. They don't have the technology. They don't have the advancements. They are unable to do that because these are really small municipalities that run the water service. And so using a digital platform, we are trying to actually automate a lot of process, including fraud detection, leak detection, again, using AI, ML, virtual voice activated interfaces, and so on, safety, compliance of workers that are fixing water problems. So just an example of how technology can change. Here is a transportation example. Within the transportation space, what happens is a lot of accidents occur because of driver mistakes, and drivers make mistakes because they sometimes they don't have they're overworking. Their license is expired. They are handling wrong vehicle type. It's a very common problem in the industry. And so what this particular platform does is detects such problems ahead of time. It looks at your driving history and predicts what particular truck driver is most likely to cause an accident, and what kind of corrective remedial actions or corrective preventive actions the system has to take. For example, doing another training, getting another license, and so on. So it's just another example of how human life can be improved upon. This is an example from the pandemic COVID-19 situation where, I said 43% of the workers are able to work remotely. What about the remainder of the workers? They are all frontline workers. They're working in the field, and they need tremendous help in being safe. So this is it's a product called Safely. It's available on Play Store and App Store. You can download it. What the product does is it enables you to create zones in your workforce. It enables you to do contact tracing and all kinds of interesting stuff. It enables you to measure temperatures and create surveys and all that. So this product has been launched during the pandemic, over almost 3 months of development. So another really actively used in schools, in frontline workers everywhere. This is a platform, critical event platform that we've collaborated with. What the product does is it enables you to track your employees and any critical event. For example, a hurricane is occurring in Florida. It can track how many of your employees are currently in Florida, and enable you to do disaster recovery for those employees. If there's a riot in a certain town or a city, it tracks all of them. So it's just a fantastic way to track all your assets, most important assets, your people, and ensure the safety of those. So again, through these examples, the point I'm trying to convey is that when you take each technology individually, it doesn't create as much of an impact on human life. But when you combine all these levels of innovation, you can create something amazing, and that can either connect us, improve our lives, make us healthier. And I think we just feel so passionate about it. I can go on and on. We have, like I said, hundreds of examples of these. But I think through these few examples, I wanted to highlight how innovation is helpful.
Thank you for this wonderful insights, Mr. Doshi. If time permits, I'll come back to you with one more question later. Thank you so much. We'll move to Mr. Nicholas Perel, Partner and Head, Technology and Digital Solution, Mazars Group. Good evening, Mr. Nicholas.
Good evening.
How are you, sir?
All of you. Thank you very much. Good evening to all of you.
Thank you.
Greetings from France.
Thank you so much for joining, Mr. Nicholas. Sincerely appreciate. You have been leading the technology and digital solutions for Mazars Group, and we understand for more than 22 years with Mazars in France, in US, and UK, and you've been providing IT consulting services across various industries, specifically financial services. You have had huge experience with global commercial and investment banks, insurance companies, retail and manufacturing groups, and you have also demonstrated huge experience in digital transformation programs as well as cybersecurity programs. May I ask you, sir, with technology invading human life in every sphere, we are extremely vulnerable, and cybersecurity assumes a larger-than-life role to safeguard us. Do you think we are adequately protected with increasing exposure to innovative technology? That was my first question.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this question, and thank you again for inviting me for this very interesting panel. So we're swimming in a sea of extreme complexity. So with a workplace, at home, looking at new technology and innovation. So Mr. Doshi demonstrated that we are in within the world of great innovations, and more and more we're exposed to those new technology, and obviously we need to protect ourselves, not only the organization, but mostly the humans. So what we've seen in the last few years is the development of many new solutions to protect environment, not only at work, but also in our private lives. And most of them have been efficient, but with new technology like AI and IoTs, so we're facing new challenges. And those AI, they have been pretty efficient in reducing false positive, but they're not been doing necessarily a great deal of providing great deal of result when it comes to really mimicking what humans are looking for. So for the last few years, and we've seen that at Mazars, working in various jurisdictions and collaborating with startups, that more and more technology are getting into more human behavior. So they really looking at targeted attacks, and they really adapt the way they are able to adapt the security. So to give you an example of things that I think are pretty smart, it's deceptive technology. So it's really taking a different stance. Instead of protecting something, these technology are trying to like honeypots. They are trying to attract bad people, attackers, to fake addresses, to fake resources, and so they are trapped. They are trapped in a way that actually alarm are popping up to the people that are managing security. So and I think what's really interesting is the fact that although we're developing more and more advanced technology using AI, using different innovations, on the other side, bad actors, they are developing the same kind of technology. So we're still trying to catch the bad people. And I think what I've seen in the last year also, we're maybe getting a step ahead of them. So to answer really your question, I would say I think we're getting protected. Is it perfect? No, but with the innovations, I'm pretty sure that we'll be a little bit ahead of the bad people, and so that will have a positive impact on humans.
Thank you so much. With the pandemic and remote working, how is digital security being managed? And in future, what do you think are the additional investments that organizations need to make to manage this scenario?
Yeah. So it's again a great question, and really I would say actual question. So what I've seen in the UK, in France, for companies that were not necessarily prepared for this kind of crisis, and having a significant amount of their workforce working from home, they actually did not anticipated having enough laptops for people being able to work from home, having the right bandwidth, the right protection tunneling, so the VPNs in place, actually large enough and strong enough to cope with the volume. And so, and I've seen, even for large corporation, IT, internal IT, getting into supermarket, buying laptops because they have to continue to work. And so that created a significant amount of stress on their systems, because they were putting new assets and new resources that were not vetted before, and so most of the burden finally relied on humans. And as you know, and I think this is something that won't be new for anyone, we're as strong as our weakest link, and usually the weakest link is the human. And so humans, they make errors, they make mistakes. When it comes to security and for instance, phishing or social engineering, they click on emails. And even for those that are trained, sometimes they want to move too fast, and so they click, and it's too late. So and criminals and bad people, they know that, and they know it, and they use it all the time. So what I would say, the first investment that needs to be done, it's on people's awareness. Too often, IT and cybersecurity experts and CISO, and they are relying too much on the technology, and they are putting a little bit on the side the humans that are using technology. And so awareness program, although they are provided to employees, I think they are not enough developed, and they need to be created in a way that is part of a program. So with testing, with some kind of award, making a contest. That's the way I think that will be the most effective. And for that, you need to invest in such program. The other thing, as the head of NCSC, which is the National Cybersecurity Center in the UK, was saying, if security doesn't work for people, it doesn't work. So I think now it's really time to have human-centric approach on cybersecurity. So as I say, most of the time, we were focusing on the technology and less on the people. So now it's really time to have an holistic and more practical approach. I'm going to give you an example. On the guideline of the NIST, so which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the US. So they changed their guideline on the password. We know that most of the time we need to have a complex password. We need to change it periodically. Usually it's more often than other. So which is really annoying for employee and humans, because you have so many passwords. You have a complexity and needs that are different, and you make mistake. And at some point you write down some the passwords. So what the NIST is promoting now, it's to have a password that you can remember, which is really unusual. Quite long, you have to remember, and those passwords doesn't need to be changed quite often. It's just a matter of having something that you can remember that is long, and you can actually keep it longer than it used to be, and which is really counterintuitive. And I think the where we need an investment, it's really on the cybersecurity industry, where a specialist, they need to spend more time understanding why people do what they do, and as a way to actually find solution. And instead of labeling people are stupid, because that's what they think. So I think they need to invest in more human-centric tools like continuous adaptive risk and trust, and to actually do some analysis on what would be the normal behavior of a human. And so I think more than companies investing in new tools, I think it's the industry that needs to invest in more human-centric tools. And so at the end, that's what the organization and human will get, and will be more protected.
That was excellent. That was really excellent. One last quick question. How is technology helping you to accelerate the adherence to regulatory and compliance standards? And how are you able to audit risk and assurance standards using tools like RPA, AI, bots, blockchain, etc.?
Yeah, so I think for us, looking at new for us and for the profession, audit and consulting, looking at new technology is I think a tremendous opportunity of getting things that are for most of the company time consuming and with no value for organizations. Most of the time, when we interact with clients on compliance or regulatory matters, they just invest when they need to. And actually, using new technology like RPA, like machine learning, AI, bots, it's a good way for them to actually have, the machines doing the work, and then at the end put on the side and just provide to the authorities, the result of what they need to provide. And actually, for us, looking at the standards and the standards and the regulatory obligations, we more and more were using some of those technology. Let me give you an example. We provide a service that is called DPO outsourcing. So for some of the organizations that are outside Europe, if they have some operation in Europe, they need to comply with Gdpr, which is a tremendous amount of work for everyone. I mean, on the company side, because it's a really stringent regulation. So I know that in India you'll have something that is pretty similar. But for the sake of the example, I will use GDPR. And for GDPR, what we try to do for this part, it's we use a chatbot that are accessible by our client to ask questions about whether or not some of the personal information needs to be protected, the way it needs to be protected, and based on the country, you have additional piece of regulation that are required to protect information. And so we're able, using new technology like a chatbot, to streamline this process and provide a low cost service to the client and actually comply with the regulation. So on RPA is the same. And the other example is using machine learning. So being able to actually flag some of the contracts in insurance companies. So using machine learning, we're able to do so on the entire population instead of using only some sample. So that creates a tremendous amount of savings, and actually you're closer to compliance. And regarding the other part of your question, so to be able to look at those new technology, the way they are worked at companies, you need to know exactly how it works, and usually we use our consultants that are doing implementation of those tools to explain to auditors how they work, to be able to actually assess whether or not the tool is properly implemented, is providing the service is supposed to, and actually is getting the proper results. And as such, we're using RPA to control some errors in data when you have manual interaction with data. We're using also AI when it comes to operation processes that are not non-rules based, and to embed some controls in those processes. And actually, what we've seen is that we're becoming virtual auditors. So quite far from humans. And I think we're humans that are more focused on added value work than really things that were time consuming, thanks to new technologies.
Thank you so much for these amazing insights. Thank you. Before I move to our next panelist, I would request the audience to kindly put in your questions in the chat box, and we will definitely try and cover as much as possible out of them. Moving to Mr. Sudhir Kothari, founder, CEO, and director, MB Software. Very good evening, Mr. Sudhir Kothari. How are you, sir?
Chiranjeev, good evening, very good evening to you and to everybody else again, once again.
So, Mr. Kothari, you have been such a successful entrepreneur, a dynamic leader, and you have built MB Software today to a 100 million organization over the past 34 years. And in fact, I have been fortunate enough to witness this journey of yours also in the past 13, 14 years. And what we have seen is your leadership style can be best described as entrepreneurial, with you constantly inculcating in your team a culture of swift decision-making, ownership, and customer centricity. May I ask a few questions to you, sir? The first question being, according to IDC, small and medium-sized businesses will look to harness transformative technologies to support digitalization, which will lead to future growth. Now, what, according to you, is the technology trend that acts as a catalyst to growth in the SMB sector, and why?
Thanks, Chiranjeev, and thanks for inviting me on the panel. First of all, let's define SMB, in India. So I'm sure you're talking from India perspective. So I'm saying in India, then SMB, I'll say, is from 20 to 200 people organization with a turnover of 10 crores to 250 crores, usually. So if I assume this is the SMB segment in India, then I will say that meaningful tech, I think Mr. Doshi was also talking about the same thing. Meaningful tech is hugely under-penetrated. I think 70% of the SMB market in India today. And frankly speaking, tech is the backbone of any business today. Whether it's a large enterprise or a small enterprise, does not matter. With tech today, and same thing which I want to repeat again, what Mr. Doshi was saying, that tech is available today on pay-as-you-give basis with little cost, with little risk. Today, people can actually, or SMBs can actually embrace world-class technologies at a fraction of the cost, which used to cost very high earlier times. So cost of experiment and failure has reduced tremendously today, which is one of the reasons why tech should get embraced as soon as possible in SMB. The reason being, today being compliance, banking, client transaction, etc., is all getting today digitized. Hence, for SMB to scale their business, which your question is, and to remain in control of their business and stay compliant, so important in today's world, and to be relevant to their client at the same time, I think they need to have a host of technologies implemented. But I'm very sorry to say, but there are SMBs who have not got meaningful technologies implemented as yet in India. Technology like something like ERP, for example, something like workplace modernization is not there, especially in this pandemic time. Workplace modernization is so important, which includes like secured mailing system or a secured work from anywhere solution, not from work from home, work from anywhere solution, like video conferencing and collaboration tools. Adoption of cloud technology is so important. Simple things like CRM, for example, business intelligence, which you are talking about today, analytics is so important. How do we get the informed data to take informed decisions, for example? Human capital management, so important. The moment you have more than 50, 100 employees, it's so important that you have human capital management end-to-end solution implemented. I think it's very important that today SMB deploys these kind of technologies. And I agree with Mr. Doshi very much that faster they do, better is for them, because I feel they will perish very soon. It's unfortunate, we don't want it, but they will perish because technology is becoming backbone.
Thank you so much. You have been constantly evolving diversifying into multiple IT services, morphed into a product-centric company, then expanded into offering cloud services. Has COVID-19 inspired you to offer any new technology offering? How agile are you in terms of creating new service offerings and delivering to your customers? And how is technology adding value there?
Okay, so I'll take a little bit, talk about a little bit of MB, what we have gone through 34 years. I'll just add that, and I'll relate to that basically. So when we started 34 years back, I'll say when we started selling cutting edge solutions, and that happened in this new century, 2000, when 2000 started. So I always believed in the phrase, one need to walk the talk. I can't just keep going selling, and I don't actually implement at my place. And so one of the first thing we did was whenever we had new technology coming in, we actually embraced those technologies to whatever extent possible, and we implement internally also at the same time. So, we were SMB, for example, in 2003-4, we were 30-40 crore company. And we implemented, right mailing system or ERP in 2007, or, entire O365 suite in 2012-13, CRM, dashboards 2015-14. So everything we implemented, I think by 2015-16 we were actually implemented everything. And once we became development organization, for example, cloud services, we implemented all development related technologies so that we are professional with our clients. Now soon we are going to in fact embrace DevOps in our development process and the cloud adoption framework. So this is, for example, this is never ending. So this entire. So agility is the key in any business today, more so in tech, for example, business. So I must say that our agility has gained speed with time, and as was the need. So for example, in the year 2000, so we used to change probably in 3 to 4 years time. Probably now we have to change in 6 to 12 months time. That's the kind of speed we need to have. And if we don't have it, we will not be relevant to our stakeholders or employees also at the same time. Take, for example, we embraced cloud as a go-to-market strategy or business model in the year 2014, and we were just reselling those days. Today, we are consulting and delivery solution on advanced stacks like data modernization, DevOps, app modernization, cloud migrations, complete cloud migration services, modern workspace security, collaboration, workflow, everything we're doing it today. And this is all happened in 4 to 5 years time. And that's the speed I'm talking about. And if you have not done this, you would have been irrelevant today in the cloud business world. And the best part is that we can see that more changes are coming in the future. We are talking about AI, blockchain, everything is coming, and we have to get ready for it. So your question that what we did when the pandemic hit. So as the pandemic hit in March, we saw the client biggest challenge, the priority shifted to providing remote services, remote working of the employees in a secured environment. And as an organization, which was already into cloud computing, it did not take much of time to start giving solution both on VDI and WVD. So that was the first thing we did. We implemented almost 50 clients in the first 3-4 months. We migrated more customers to cloud in 4 months, first 4 months, what we did in 2 years' time. So all this we did, where 100% of our employees were working from home because we had embraced technology internally. And we shifted to work from anywhere overnight on 17th March. We did not have to do anything extra to enable our team because tech was already implemented in our place here. So I think huge, COVID-19 taught us a lot of things. COVID-19 gave us opportunity being in the tech business, and I just given you 2 or 3 solutions example. There were multiple such solutions which we actually embraced. Some of the new solutions which we embraced, and we actually delivered it to client.
Thank you so much. My last question to you: what would be your message to emerging entrepreneurs?
There are a lot of messages that we cannot stop. I cannot finish it in 2 minutes. But I think I'll give from my experience. Everybody has their own experiences in life. We all learn with experiences. We make mistakes in life. So I'll say first is all entrepreneurs have to have infinite mindset here. Because the company lives more than the promoter, because the entrepreneur has to focus on long-term impact and value creation. That they cannot see a short term. That I am just going to create some business and I'm going to make some profit and just go out. It cannot happen. Then you're not an entrepreneur basically. So you have to have a long-term view of what you're doing. Second is, I think, very important is inclusiveness. The attitude that this business is not about me only. We always think this business belongs to me or belongs to my family. It's not so. So there are various stakeholders in the business which makes you successful. And I think the interests of those stakeholders have to be given priority. Example, you go ups and down in life. And if you have a problem in cash flow, you have to first give salary to your people rather than taking it home. I'm just talking from that perspective. Example, I'm just giving an example. So inclusiveness is very important. You deliver on commitment to your stakeholders is very important, whoever your stakeholders are. Third is trust. You need to build trust with the stakeholders and all stakeholders, whether it's client, whether you're bankers, whether you're employees, whether you're partners. You have to build trust. So important. Which means you have to deal with all fairness and transparency. Very important. So you build system. I think I've been able to retain my best of employees for years because I've been transparent in my business completely. I've created, a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to show what profits they are making. I tell them what profits you're making and dashboards are created, So I think it's very important that fairness and transparency is maintained. Very important is stay compliant in business. A lot of people try to take shortcut. First thing in my life I learned from my grandfather was, if you want to be happy in life, pay taxes, pay your taxes. Build balance sheet. It will help you grow because it will help you grow business rapidly. So very important. Fourth is important is humbleness. I think when you do business, you start getting success in life. And that's in when arrogance start creeping in. So I think humbleness brings in more opportunity to people. It will bring in opportunity to grow. And I think that the moment you start becoming arrogant, that's the start of the downfall of individual as well as the business. So very important to be humble in life and humble in business too. The fifth is very important, social responsibility. An attitude of giving back to society, attitude of both, it will give a satisfaction to you at the individual level also at the same time. Because it's a duty it is a duty to basically be responsible towards giving back to the society. And we can have various methods to doing that. It can be through method of giving back in wealth. Chiranjeev, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I think there can be various methods of giving this back. It can be through wealth, it can be through personal effort, or it could be through transfer of knowledge. And I always believe there is always saying that the moment you limit your gain and limit it to serve yourself and your family, the universe also provide you that much only. And if you start thinking of and expand your horizon, basically to serve a bigger cause, so automatically the universe conspires to make it happen for you. It's all about the attitude. And I think it's my personal experience. Last, I would like to mention that young entrepreneurs should embrace the learning of Bhagavad-Gita. They can get answers to all their questions and life challenges there. It teaches us how to lead a dynamic life while being peaceful. And I say, don't wait for the old age to come. This is a divine knowledge One needs it when you are young and active. I think this is very important. This has impacted me in my life. I follow this for last 25 years. And I think this has really helped me in every situation of life. I think these are some of the things which probably I felt that I must share. There are many things learning during the COVID time. During my entrepreneurship period. But I think I just thought that came to my mind 4 or 5 things which I thought that I can share with you.
Simply amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you once again for joining us and taking such an active participation and playing such an active role. I'll move to Mr. Sujit Bakshi, President, Corporate Affairs and Business Head, Emerging Markets, Tech Mahindra. Good evening, sir.
Can you hear me now? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Thank you.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
Sir, thank you once again. Sincerely appreciate your participation. We are aware of the reputation that you have globally as a business leader in people management, operations management, corporate strategy. Being a visionary and a strategist for decades in the industry and possibly over 30 years in the IT industry, we are aware to some extent of the enormous role that you have played in rapid growth of all the organizations where you have been. In fact, I have been fortunate enough, sir, to see you build HCL, HCL Group as well as HCL Technologies. So once again, sir, our sincere gratitude to you for joining us. May I request you to kindly start your presentation, sir, on today's subject, technology for humans, post which, if you allow me, I'll come up with a few questions.
Yeah, but thank you so much, Chiranjeev, for this opportunity. It allows me to go back to my roots. I basically belong to Kolkata. I studied there after my graduation. And this allows me to go back to my roots, Bengal Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, Chiranjeev, because we worked together as colleagues in HCL, when I spent about 20 years out of the total 40 years that I worked, maybe he was a little extra generous to me on his compliments. But having cut that, I have a presentation which is on the screen, small presentation. And I think nothing could have been more relevant as far as AI is concerned, technology is concerned, in the current pandemic, especially in a country like India. And every country has its own challenge. You know, Nicholas, you are from France, you have your own challenges. I have operations in Italy. I have 500 people in Pininfarina, and Italy is, gone through upheavals. UK up and down. Everybody has its own challenges, but India is endowed with additional challenges, with 1.3 billion people, very remote, multiple dialects, multiple languages, multiple culture. Extremely inaccessible infrastructure. But I think the technology has, in advance of pandemic, the technology, just a simple Aadhaar card, a single number, has actually helped us. Not that we are aware of the pandemic, but I think that the technology investments made by the government, and I really appreciate the government, irrespective of political affiliation. I don't belong to any political party, but just as the investment made by this government in the past 4 or 5 years has actually helped us to deal with pandemic much more elegantly than it was expected for a country with diverse problems. In addition to the pandemic and the COVID, we have the border tensions, we have the typhoon, and we have multiple things coming at various points of time. We have the farmer agitation, something or other, and the political divide. Cost of elections are very, very high. I think the technology is what has helped us. And today there are vivid examples that in India, contact tracing at such a massive scale and spread was possible because of technology investment by the government way ahead of time. I'll come to my small presentation. One is how AI or technology relevant and today, and then I'll come to specific as to how Tech Mahindra has been involved from my personal experience. So, Chiranjeev, if you have the control on the screen, can you flip it? So, at overall level, involved material living standards, access to better products, generate new sources of income, technology, and this true everywhere. This is not only India but everywhere, and the whole world is perhaps balancing between life and livelihood. Whole world in different forms and shape. Need for innovation, access to collaboration, remote working tools will drive more job opportunities. I know the lockdown sets back job opportunities uh, intermittently, but if we did not have the technology, the job loss would have been much more severe than what we have today. The remote working today, 70%, 80% of employees, my employees, are not only working from remote locations, but from their hometowns and still providing service. Improved health and longevity, AI-powered drug research, personal lifestyle wearables that can help individuals monitor the health and track improvements. And this health and longevity, and I think one of the panelists was doing some interesting work on this. This has not been necessitated after the pandemic, after March. These inventions have been going on, at least in India. The inventions have been going on for quite a while. In my opinion, I've been involved in at least 2 years in various drug research and molecular research for any kind of virus. Education. It's sad to see my grandchildren sitting at home. But if this remote education is not possible, and when they can't go out, with the pollution levels in Delhi, which is an additional harassment and hindrance to a lifestyle, if this was not there, the education system would have completely collapsed. Everything is going on, including the common admission test, the joint entrance exam, everything is going on. And perhaps students are more in touch with their teachers today than in a physical environment. Since technology, which has helped us not to set back a year or two of education. Technology, yeah, can you hear me? Am I not audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible, absolutely.
Sorry. And sustainability as well as innovation needs to embedded in adoption. To come back to go to the next slide, Chiranjeev, if you help me to proceed. This is what we are doing at Tech Mahindra, at workplace, and so we call it TechM Now, or not TechM Next. We started with TechM Next, but we actually call it TechM Now. The next has to come now. And in my opinion, the COVID has actually accelerated the use of technology than ever before. And I see a lot of opportunities. Maybe I might be sounding very mercenary, but I see COVID has opened up new opportunities to do business. I can tell you I handle various parts of the world in terms of business. India is the only place where not a single project or discretionary spend has been aborted. But in other parts of the world where I do business, a lot of discretionary spending has gone, especially related to technology, and we're a technology firm. India might have deferred by a quarter, but all the large business or new business that we had signed, not a single one have been cancelled. And we have signed new contracts as on March 31st. A COVID time, in the COVID period, post-COVID, in India, we have signed about $200 million of contracts in the last 3 months, just India. Workforce action at TechM, we have a 24/7 K2, we call it, query management, workforce action, and payslip, applying folly. I'm sure this is true for many other organizations. Emotion support by active listening and engaging in fun way by telling jokes and general trivia. Voice and well face recognition, this is something we are the first to do. We have done face recognition, where it sense the mind, sense the emotion when an employee enters the workplace and when the employee leaves the workplace. And especially in a BPO business, which is a part of our IT business also in addition to, an employee or real asset moves in and out 24 times a day. So 12 to 24 hours every year, there's a shift change or some real asset coming in, some real estate walking in. So very, very important to do the emotive capture of things. Virtual onboarding, I'm sure this is more of a necessity. Book my seat, so where 30%, 20% of employees are coming on a rotational basis to the office. The mobile app allows you to book your workplace. Canteen app, I think I'm sure a lot of you have done. Physical wellness and posture, so we do it around the year, and this is more true or more relevant in work from home because we are stuck in a room because you don't have a workplace or go to the coffee shop or go to the quiet area. So actually you're stuck, and obviously this, I think we do it almost every 2 hours. We do it for the employees. They can opt, nothing is forced. Palmlift, the mobile learning platform with AI recommended courses. Upskilling as a service, we have multiple upskilling. And actually, we launched a program 3 years back. In hindsight, perhaps it shows that we had a strategy, but it was actually a strategy. We said IT to DT, information technology to digital technology. And we actually, out of 100,000 people, before the pandemic, 40,000 people are trained on digital technology. Today, about 45% of our global business and 80% of India business is digital. Digital is not just going into a portal and touching the portal. Digital, the real sense of digital, as the way NASCOM defines digital. Can you go to the next slide, please? FlexSci, this is a AI-based skill by which the employees can choose. And I know all of you are from the software industry, there is a lot of resistance of project managers to release their employees for a new project. So we have made it very, very democratic. An employee can go to the portal and choose which is the next assignment he or she needs to go and what training he or she needs between the current project and new one. Upskilling as a service, I just shared that, fit for future, workplace next. Our Makers Lab is our innovation. Can you go back once, please, Chiranjeev? It's something that we have created a Makers Lab, the innovation arm of Tech Mahindra. We will leverage AI to conduct research and find potential therapeutic drugs for treatment of COVID-19. There's something more that is still to announce by government, where we work very actively. We're also working very actively to be prepared for mass distribution of COVID vaccine as and when it comes. Not only production, gearing up for production. Whoever produces those labs, or the lab in Pune or which are other lab which gets the Oxford vaccine, or which vaccine Oxford is perhaps more suitable because it doesn't require minus 70 degrees. So we worked on that. We worked on transportation. We were ready with the solution for transportation and delivering to 100 million people in a period of 30 days. We are ready with the technology as and when the government decides to do it. Can you go to the next one? I think what we have also done is the gig workforce. We are taking advantage of the gig workforce, and we have an open platform by which people can opt to work on projects at his or her free time on pay-as-you-serve kind of basis. Where you say pay-as-you-serve, you had mentioned about pay-as-you-serve, software as a service for clients. I'm saying I'm doing pay-as-you-serve to our gig workers across the globe. I think that's all that I have. I don't want to go to anything more. technology. I think the banking service, and I think nowhere in the world have we seen 800 million people being brought into the banking system, and perhaps some duplicate banks are there, through the government scheme that was launched much ahead of the COVID for going to a cashless economy. 800 million people just on Aadhaar card taking advantage of that. 800 new bank customers, which has helped us to do direct benefit transfer, DBT. And that is a phenomenal. And I do work for State Bank of India. The Uvo product has been designed by Tech Mahindra. The CRM runs on us. And the amalgamation of 5 subsidiaries was done by one system. They retained their core banking, but we did the connection to one system was done by us. I mean, they are adding roughly 500,000 customers every month. So the system is actually crashing today. And in many other parts of the globe, they will have 500,000 customers over a period of last 2 decades. State Bank is adding 500,000 every month. So that's the mass at which India operates. And I think today what we experiment in India will actually go global. We also run the largest emergency response center in the world. We get 100,000 calls every day. And in that emergency center, dial 100. We are measured by number of suicides that we have been able to save. That's our measurement and KPI with the JP government. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for these wonderful insights. In fact, the presentation answers a lot of questions which we would definitely want to know. A couple of questions, if you allow me. One of them being that, is there any specific investment or initiative which you would be planning with the government towards more and more skill development towards emerging technologies, sir?
So with the government, of course, we are doing more of creating platform pro novo platforms. One is the employment generation, one is the matching the rural skill set in a very remote place with the jobs available in that center, that location. Matching and doing the interviews on a phone, matching of resumes. We have developed that Sarol platform, which we launched and working with the government to implement that on a larger scale. Skill development, again, our innovation lab, Makers Lab, has got large number of startup entrepreneurs whom we do mentoring, coaching, and upskilling. And we help them to generate a product which we use our global reach of 800 customers across the globe and about 700 sales guys across the globe. We take their products, which is developed in a lab, to global market. Not only in India, we have now launched it in Bangladesh as well.
That's great, sir. Sir, any specific investment to create a unique employee experience within TechM? You have already spoken of certain measures of creating.
Whether it is face recognition, we have also done HealthCube. HealthCube is a product where every employee that comes to our facility to work, when they decide to come to work or when they're scheduled to work, we have a test with a very small device, and we call it the My Health, the HealthCube, which actually tests your possibility of getting affected by COVID. It's a risk factor assessment. It's not a COVID vaccine. It is not a COVID testing. But yes, so when the risk factor goes to level 3, we tell the employees go and do the test. So that's done at all our centers across India.
Thank you, sir. One last quick question, sir. The pace of technological innovations are really not commensurate with the growth in adoption of technology in different countries. So at your level, sir, how do you balance strategy and investment?
So I don't know, different countries have different experience. Again, I'm a very proud Indian, and sorry, people who are from the US and France, nothing wrong. You're also very nationalistic, and you should be nationalistic. Because I think whatever I've got in life is because of the education this country gave me, and I've been on scholarship all through my life. So I think it's the least that I can give back and be proud of being an Indian. I think the adoption of technology, if you look at farm to fork, the farm produce to the fork, we look at that. We look at blockchain being used for cross-country. If you look at all that, I think India is ahead of many other countries in terms of taking technology to the absolutely remotest of the individual life in a remotest corner. The technology adoption has been, if you look at the current, farm protest is going, and I don't think why this protest is going on. I mean, the farmer, I've extensively traveled in Northeast, a territory that I love, from Shillong, a very dynamic chief minister. But the terrain is so difficult. The natural produce is fruits and vegetables, right? Now they can't transport it from there. They can't warehouse it. There's no technology. So I think today the government of a farmer, by the farmer who produces something at 2 rupees, and it is sold in the marketplace at 10 rupees, the farmer only gets 3 rupees. 7 rupees is by the middleman. To the government, and first ITC took that move in India, but I think the government has done a phenomenal job of telling the farmer and the buyer to meet and sell at a price which is mutually agreed. Now that kind of use of technology for a farmer in a remote village in Madhya Pradesh to sell to a guy who is in Haryana, I think is an amazing platform that has been created. And the technology has touched that farmer in a remote village in Madhya Pradesh. And they're adopting.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything, and thank you for joining us today. I move to Mr. Ranjit Metrani, Head of Sales and Solutions, NextGen Infinite Data Center. Good evening, Mr. Ranjit Metrani.
Good evening, Charanjit.
How are you, sir?
Good.
Thank you so much once again for joining us today. You have nearly 3 decades of professional experience in leadership positions, and you have been an accomplished technology business leader with extensive experience in sales, P&L, business alliances, enterprise hardware, software, cloud, data centers, partner management, and a proven track record of driving high growth businesses. May I request you, Mr. Ranjit, to make a quick presentation, post which I have a couple of questions for you. My only request is, actually we have little time left, because our learned and knowledgeable panelists have really engaged us so intensely that my request is, if we can quickly go through your presentation, Mr. Ranjit, and then it should be followed by a couple.
Yes, thanks, Charanjit. At the outset, thanks to Bengal Chamber of Commerce for giving us this opportunity and getting engaged with such esteemed panelists. So what I'll do is the context of my presentation is to all the discussion that actually happened. So I'll quickly share my screen and present a quick presentation across. Is it visible?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so quickly, NextGen Data Center, we've been in this business for about 8+ years now, funded by marquee investors like Intel and World Bank. We've been in this business for serving cloud services across the country, and we have about 4 active data centers across the country. Now, we all spoke about technology and technology for good. And I used to ask this in many sessions as to which is that one technology which has changed human life. And the first thing, there were a lot of answers in terms of which technologies actually change human life. But there's one thing which actually stands out and which is very, very relevant when you see a picture which I'll share, is this one, the smartphone itself, right? You can ultimately, to reach people, any of these platforms which we are discussing, the smartphone and the internet itself has enabled in a very big way for technology to reach ultimately humans. But in spite of the fact that we have this technology which is very great, and there's, the panelists spoke about a lot of new technologies which are already prevalent, you still see these kind of boards everywhere, right? Social distancing boards, which are probably, you walk into a restaurant and you see these boards which are still prevalent in spite of whatever technologies which exist today in the world. And these are very, very common. why are these common? In spite of the fact that technology is so pervasive, you still see this. And if you look at the history of technology, ultimately, technology has to reach people. And if you look at the history of technology, you'll be surprised at the amount of time today it takes to ultimately reach people, because technology has to reach people. And this, if you look at a slide, which is obviously from the web, typically, the telephone, for example, took about 50 years to reach 50 million users, whereas, for example, a Pokemon could do it in 19 days. Now, what it means ultimately is how pervasive the smartphone has become in terms of reaching out to every human being. Now, technology permeates in every single aspect, right? Today, there are 2.5 billion smartphones which are there. India itself is going to touch about 760 million smartphones by probably next year. So very clearly, you have a technology across everywhere. But one of the challenges of India, and when we were speaking about technology, is the aspect of rural India. That if you actually look at it, there is the broadband penetration in rural India is just about 29%, which is the biggest challenge as far as the India itself faces. Because if you want technology to permeate into the rural India, you really need that kind of connectivity, which is very important. But interestingly, if you look at a McKinsey report, and this is in the context of what we just spoke about, typically these are the areas which are relevant for humans, which are job security, standards of living, education, health, equal opportunities, and environmental sustainability. Now, there are 3 big areas which are very relevant to changing all of these aspects, and which is data and AI, which everybody spoke about, connectivity and platforms, and robotics. Now, all of these technologies which we today speak about, there are certain things which you need to run these technologies. Now, the 3 dimensions of this tech enablement are largely the infrastructure, platform, and the application itself. Now, we as service providers are the key to providing these 3 things which are relevant for us to permeate all those technologies to all the human which is out there. So we are one of the largest cloud service providers in India. We run, in fact, when somebody was speaking about COVID, we run the Ministry of Health COVID platform on our cloud. We run the Election Commission, for example, on our cloud. So we run some of these very, very critical projects across for the government, and we run it across our data centers which are there. So the key part is all these 3 pieces become very relevant when it comes to any technology platforms, which is what we want to take it to market. Now, one of the biggest challenge is a need of a system that actually is able to bring together the citizens, the government, and the enterprise. And the reason I state this is today, if you look at the Google Play Store, you have 27 odd lakh applications which are available for download. Now, that's a very, very big challenge. So typically, you open a mobile phone today, you have 20, 30 different apps which are sitting on your mobile, and each of these apps do different things which are, probably different in its own ways. What is very clearly required is a unified digital canvas, which is able to communicate, interact, and transact so that it enables a much easier access of technology platforms to all of the businesses. But the most important part in this is the trust factor, which ultimately leads to infinite possibilities. And that is where at NextGen we created a platform which is Incolab. Incolab is basically a canvas which unites all these digital systems into a single platform to enable business services to all our customers. As you can see, you have citizens, business, and the government in a single platform wherein you can communicate, you can engage, and you can do a lot more things. And one of the things which we do specifically, for example, on healthcare, which we've integrated, is the telemedicine itself. So the app itself has the telemedicine, which is integrated into the platform. So we have, for example, the app can do voice chat like WhatsApp. You have feature sets like Facebook. You have feature sets like Instagram. It can do all of it has feature sets like Yammer, but all of these are persona-based, very unique and very different by itself. And that's the biggest need of the hour of having a single digital system, which basically gives the benefit across to our consumers as such. We also did something unique. When the COVID was actually there, we actually said, what is it that we need to do as far as innovation is concerned to help the whole businesses out there? So we have our own cloud surveillance platform. So we are one of the first to run the video analytics as a service platform. So we use any camera which you have, and we will be able to do certain things which are for which is I just walk into nothing We also identify, of course, using thermal cameras, which are temperatures. We have social distancing platforms wherein when you walk into office, the system or the cameras are able to tell whether there are people who are socially distanced, the number of people which are there. It gives you a lot of things which actually are very relevant to the current context of things. But this is something which we innovated post the COVID part. So innovation is a very key aspect of the kind of business we are currently into. The last piece of innovation, of course, is the digital services itself. Today, I think to a large extent, if we don't make smart cities, ultimately you won't get the kind of leverage of delivering smart services across to people. And the most important part we did was to create a structure wherein we are able to deliver these smart portfolio across to all these cities across the country. So we participate and we work with, of course, the likes of TechM, for example, in terms of delivering some of these platforms across to all those cities. So lastly, of course, the most important part is the connectivity itself, which I mentioned, and control over the network is a very, very key aspect. So we are leveraging existing telecom networks to progressively create a content aggregation and distribution network and creating edge computing, considering Intel is one of our marquee investors. So we're working with Intel to take edge computing across to every single location. And in fact, we have over 236 odd locations across India. Of course, the most important part, take changes. What you saw as a stethoscope in 1816 and to what it is probably in the future is very different. So you will see technology changing and innovations happening in the tech space, and ultimately it is for the humans. I'd like to thank you, and that was a very quick snapshot of what we do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. I wanted to ask you a lot of questions, but because of paucity of time, we are unable to do that. But anyways, one question which I consider quite critical is WhatsApp and Zoom has seen an average increase of up to 3x in usage due to COVID-19. However, these platforms were not considered trustworthy by many consumers and businesses. Can this be addressed to ensure that the messaging and VC platforms are much more secured for businesses to take advantage?
Well, trust is a problem of the industry in general, right? There are, I said, 28.7 lakh apps on Google Play Store, which are being downloaded by users in some way or the other. Now, if you look at the number of accounts which are typically getting hacked, this is by a source which was there, which is again on public. As per statistics of 2018, that showed that there are 2.5 billion accounts were hacked in that particular year. That roughly amounts to 6.85 million accounts getting hacked each day, or 158 accounts every second. You know, on a lighter note, I was also Googling and trying to find out what are the most common password people use. It is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the top as far as a password for most of the accounts which are concerned. Now, if you look at the India's Ministry of Home Affairs actually issued an advisory which mentioned saying that Zoom platform is not safe, and the caution has been issued for Zoom users in India. Now, to take care of some of these things, the Personal Data Protection Bill, for example, was introduced in Lok Sabha in 2019 by MITI. The purpose of the bill was to provide protection of privacy of individuals related to personal data and establish a data protection authority for India, and which is very, very critical. The personal data becomes the key aspect of building trust in the first place. The problem of most of these platforms is that they do not have the, one, they do not have data centers in India. And second, all of these platforms use and monetize data. And that's the biggest problem, that when you start monetizing data, there's always the problem of trust, which actually comes into play. The PDPP bill, which will in some way will ensure to a large extent the privacy of the data, that it gets addressed in the right way, and the security aspect of it. Now, we at NextGen run critical government initiatives. Like I mentioned, we run the Election Commission, Ministry of Health, and we absolutely understand the need of for data security and privacy. The platform, in fact, which we launched, basically the whole idea was to ensure that we are able to give the feature sets of what it can be, what people need as far as WhatsApp are concerned, Zoom is concerned. We, in fact, launching our own VC, which we will be offering it free of cost to every single enterprise and user in the country. Now, like I mentioned, I'll go back to the point that trust is the most important part, and trust can be built provided you have privacy around the data and it doesn't get shared. And we, NextGen, believe that the data protection bill which will come out and which is tabled in the parliament today will go a long way in ensuring that the Indian consumers in a large way start trusting the apps which are out there in the market.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Ranjit. There's one question for Mr. Kinesh Doshi. Mr. Doshi?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah. One very quick question for you. Can you kindly tell us about your thoughts on innovation for the benefit of the masses, not for any commercial implication, not for commercial gains, but for the benefit of the masses, please?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for letting me talk about this, because this is really close to our heart. I want to mention our CTO, Ash Bijur, who has been an inspiration in this space. And I think someone earlier today talked about that just contributing resources and money and doing CSR initiatives is not the impact full. A lot of people do that, but it's not most impactful. And we did that for many years. We followed the CSR programs and contributed a lot of funds to different initiatives. But then our CTO, he inspired us and he said, look, doctors donate their time, lawyers donate their time. Why don't software people donate their time to greater good? And I think it was really a big change in my own mind. And that has really spawned a lot of projects at Axion. We have a product that we have supported for a few years now called GNU Khata. It's as the name suggests, it's an ERP system for poor and small merchants. It's available over the cloud at no cost to merchants within India and beyond. So that's a product that we support. We offer that software at no cost. So that's an example. Another more interesting project that we've been engaged for last couple of years is what we call as Gramino. What the Gramino initiative is about is it started with a small village in Maharashtra where our CTO went and he said, look, I think this village is 62 kilometers from any civilization. There are 300 people that live there. The electricity is intermittent. Cell phone coverage is intermittent. So there are so many such disconnected villages all over the world. And as you guys, I talked about earlier in my part of the talk, that decentralized applications and distributed apps are an amazing technology that is available that allows you to create these individual environments they're not dependent on bigger organizations like Facebook and WhatsApp and so on. So what we did is we went into this village, created a solar power technology, created integrated blockchain, created a platform called Maze, and deployed that. And actually, there was just last weekend was an opening ceremony of the platform, and you would be amazed. The villagers who have, of course, they have smartphones, but they are not. They were so disconnected from the rest of the world, but they're so excited about using this technology. Now, this is the technology that we believe would eventually be used when we find life on Mars. But we're really trying to apply this in smaller villages of India. And we think that the technology is very scalable. And it really, like I said, combines distributed apps, solar technology, and blockchain together. And so there are a lot of other initiatives that we are doing like that. Net, I think, again, under the inspiration of Ash, what we are doing is we are trying to put in our time in open source, in Gramino, in Maze, and all these projects, which we think will really help improve the human life. So again, thank you for asking that question, but we're really, really excited about, and that's really giving our employees a purpose, like I talked about earlier. People over the weekend, they're dedicating their time to going to these villages and working on contributing technology.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Doshi. We have come to the concluding part of our panel discussion. My sincere thanks to all the learned panelists. My sincere thanks to the audience for being with us. What I would like to leave everybody with is the thought that technology is best when it brings people together. And remembering what Steve Jobs had said, that it's not a faith on technology, It's a faith in people. With this, thank you very much, and I would request Angela to take the event forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was such a privilege for us at the Chamber, at the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to have been led by the leaders for Tech for Good. Thank you all. Thank you, our speakers. Thank you, our audience who are online with us from different cities of India and also from USA. Now we would move on to the next session. We have with us Mr. Sanjay Dash, Joint Secretary, IT and E Department, Government of West Bengal, to share insights on Karmabhumi, a Government of West Bengal initiative to collaborate with job seekers and employers in IT and ITES sector. Just an announcement, the audience who are with us in the webcast, you are requested to stay on, the video will continue. And the audience who are with us in Facebook, we are reliving. So we will just take a couple of minutes while Mr. Dash gets onboarded to get relived in the same page of the Facebook.